Let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at 1931, a year of massive, unprecedented change, both out in the real world and right there on the silver screen. Society was reeling, and Hollywood filmmakers? Well, they were tasked with meeting this incredibly demanding historical moment that would forever change how we tell stories. Today, we're going to explore how two fundamentally different films define the polarized heart of early Hollywood.
So, in a world fractured by crisis, what did audiences actually need from the movies? Picture the harsh reality of 1931. The Great Depression isn't just a headline on a newspaper, it is actively ravaging the globe. Bread lines are wrapping around city blocks. National morale has completely tanked. And honestly, the average person is just exhausted by the daily struggle. People were a society desperately seeking an escape. They were looking for some kind of solace and comfort hidden inside the darkened halls of those grand, plush movie palaces.
And what did they find inside? A bold, fully realized new era of storytelling. The transition to sound, the talkies, was completely finished. This wasn't just a fun novelty anymore. The sheer marvel of hearing real human voices, real emotion echoing through a theater, amplified the impact of every single scene. And as we'll see, these early sound films, regardless of their specific genre, provided exactly the same emotional survival tool for a deeply fractured society.
Let's start with our first giant, Cimarron, the grand epic.
The absolute key takeaway here is the unprecedented scale of this production. Based on Edna Ferber's massively successful novel, the film chronicled the expansive growth of an entire Oklahoma town. We are talking about a narrative spanning all the way from the chaotic, dusty frenzy of the land rush straight through to the gleaming towers of a modern metropolis. Why does this matter? Because this wasn't just a movie. It was a carefully constructed piece of grand, patriotic myth-making. It was designed from the ground up to capture that American spirit of reinvention, aiming directly at boosting a sagging national pride right when the country needed it most.
Now check out this number, 28. That represents the sheer number of cameramen required just to capture the famous Oklahoma land rush sequence. To put that in perspective, even by today's highly advanced digital standards, coordinating 28 simultaneous camera operators for a single unbroken sequence is an absolute logistical nightmare. In 1931, it was virtually unheard of. It's a staggering technical marvel.
And director Wesley Ruggles didn't just use a massive fleet of cameras, he used them to expertly capture the desperate, thundering energy of a young nation aggressively expanding westward. By utilizing thousands of extras charging wildly across a sepia-toned prairie, the visual impact was just completely overwhelming. This forward momentum, this thundering energy, it was precisely what audiences needed to feel powerful and forward-moving again in their own stalled lives.
Now shifting gears to our second film, The Champ, which is all about intimate emotion.
With this one, director King Vader's vision pivots sharply. We transition away from that sprawling, infinite horizon of a newly settled state, and we drop directly into a claustrophobic, high-contrast, tear-stained locker room. Instead of thousands of extras charging across the plains, the focus narrows down to one deeply flawed man, Andy Champ Purcell. He's a washed-up heavyweight boxer struggling profoundly with severe alcoholism. His only saving grace? A fierce, unwavering devotion to his 8-year-old son, Dink. It's a completely different scale of storytelling. Vader opted to look straight into the bruised soul of a single human being rather than the soul of a whole nation.
But the film's enduring power rested almost entirely on what we like to call lightning in a bottle. The incredibly rare, entirely unmanufactured chemistry between the two lead actors. Wallace Beery and the remarkable 8-year-old Jackie Cooper managed to turn what could have easily been a very simple, predictable sports drama into an absolute masterpiece of raw human connection. Their dynamic on screen was so genuine, so palpably real, that audiences completely forgot they were watching actors hit their marks.
At its core, you're looking at a universal story of redemption and unconditional love. The climax of this film remains, even decades later, one of cinematic history's most famous and wildly effective tearjerkers. It permanently cemented Vidor's reputation as a director of profound, unmatched empathy. He proved unequivocally that a movie didn't need a cast of thousands or a sweeping prairie to completely and utterly move an audience to their core.
So we're left with this really stark juxtaposition. On one side, you have sprawling, historical ambition. On the other, intimate, tear-stained grit. This brilliantly illustrates the profound visual and emotional contrast between two completely opposing styles of storytelling. Yet, both ultimately defined the cinematic landscape of 1931.
Let's bring these contrasting forces together at the 4th Academy Awards. When we look at the elegant Art Deco setting of the 1931 Oscars, we can clearly see how these two films perfectly catered to the dual appetite of the 1930s moviegoer. Think of it like this. Cimarron provided the grand, patriotic myth-making required to artificially inflate and support national pride during a time of immense doubt. The Champ, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, provided a highly personal, deeply cathartic release for the individual hardships people were feeling behind the closed doors of their own homes. Together, they addressed two completely different, yet equally vital, psychological needs of the American public.
When the envelopes were finally opened, Cimarron made history by taking home the big prize, Best Film Picture. And get this, it became the very first Western to ever win it. This wasn't just a shiny trophy, it was a monumental cultural milestone. It officially recognized the genre's unmatched ambition, its sprawling scale, and its vital importance to the mythos of the American identity. It really validated the massive financial risk the studio took.
But while Cimarron won the grandest award of the night, the Champ won the public. Wallace Beery took home a Best Actor statuette for his incredibly moving, intensely vulnerable performance. This critical win proved something absolutely essential to the industry. The collective heart of the people resonated just as strongly with quiet, painful personal struggle as it did with loud, thundering national triumph.
Wrapping up, let's talk about the legacy of these early talkies.
Ultimately, the movies had become our most powerful way of making sense of the world. These films didn't just entertain, they became fundamental pillars of early sound-era storytelling. They taught Hollywood exactly how to speak directly to an audience's deepest fears and highest hopes. Whether it was through the thundering hooves of a sprawling land rush or the quiet, devastating sobs echoing in a lonely locker room, both films offered exactly the same necessary catharsis for a deeply anxious nation. So, looking at the massive blockbusters and intimate indie films of today, it makes you wonder, do we still seek out those same two forms of escape?
This was brought to you by Stalls or Circle. Thank you for listening.